Hello, my name is Samantha Aguilera from Torrance High School, from the Torrance High School FCCLA chapter in Torrance, California, and today I will be presenting my fashion construction project that I like to call Medieval Madness. At the bottom here, you'll see a picture of the pattern envelope with a picture of what Simplicity had intended the costume to look like. Next to it is the sketch that I drew up of what I wanted the costume to look like with the color combinations that I wanted. Up here, you'll see my planning process paper, which gives detailed instructions as to what I had intended to do on the dates that I intended on doing it. And underneath that, it gives a detailed description as to what I actually wound up doing on the dates that I did the project. Underneath that is a photo storyboard, which gives a few pictures just showing the entire process as to how I put together this entire outfit, and a little descriptor underneath each picture, just telling someone exactly what I was doing in that picture. Across the way is my fabric profile paper, and it's just showing the majority of the fabric that I wound up using and little indicators as to what that material is like. At the top is my crepe back satin, since that is the most used material for this entire project. Underneath that is my China silk lining, as that is the next most used material for the corset top. Underneath that is my embroidered mesh, which is seen at the very, very middle center front of my corset. And then underneath that is my chiffon, which was used to make the entire overskirt. On top of that, you have my cost itemization page, which just goes through all of the costs of the materials, any notions that I used, and any additional products that I did wind up using for this project. The entire cost was about $131, but if you take in the time that I spent on it, which was about 26.8 hours, which can be found in my time log in the PDF file, you'll notice that if this were actually to be sold, then it would cost more around $231 rather than $131 that it was made out of, just to account for the materials, the notions, the time spent on it, and allowing the producer to actually make money off of it. Now going over to my costume, you'll see that I have 8 specific areas that I focused on. The first one is that there's a sheer overlay with the mesh on top of the crepe back satin in the center front of the corset. Also in the corset is boning and lining to make sure that the corset stays as strong as possible and can be worn for a very long time. The skirt itself has a few different skill selection areas. Number one, it has a very, very strong waistband in it. Another thing is that its seams are all serged together, so the fabric should not wind up fraying if you were to wear this out. Behind it, you'll see that it has hook and eyes and an invisible zipper that were sewn to make sure that it remains closed and stays closed while you're wearing it and moving around. The overskirt, you see that I gathered the material very much to make sure that it was not as sheer as initial chiffon is, and to make sure that it has a flowy appearance when you're in motion. So the overall process was pretty challenging, and a few of the biggest issues were that I had to sew boning into the corset, as well as make sure that all of my seams lined up perfectly and were super, super clean. The ways that I worked around that was the boning, I made sure that I sewed it very, very slowly and made sure that every time I would sew over where the boning was, I took it very slow and very meticulously and made sure that the boning was pushed all the way down so that the needle didn't catch the boning while sewing through the material. The way that I kept my seams really, really clean and straight were just taking my time measuring, making sure that everything was sewn perfectly, checking everything triple the amount of times that I was supposed to, and just if something was off, I would unstitch it and stitch it together to make sure that it was absolutely perfect. The skill that I most improved on had to be putting in boning into a bodice, as it's a very difficult task. So the way that I plan on using this skill in the future is being able to manipulate the boning and use it for different styles of corsets in the future. So the coordinates that I have with this whole outfit is a handmade mask made out of the crepe back satin and the embroidered mesh. I have a choker that I handmade as well, with some keys on it just to give it a little more spice. I have a gauntlet right here, which is also handmade out of crepe back satin and laces up just like a corset does, and some black wedge heels with an ankle strap on it. So the whole reason that it's called medieval madness is because it looks similar to what people would wear back in the medieval times, just with a little bit of a twist. So the darkness of it, the black, the depth in it, would be the madness part, because you see it and you think of mysterious and dark and deep. So that's where the madness comes in. And then the medieval is just, it kind of looks like something that you would find from back in the medieval time period. So when you're looking at this, it flows just like you would see a gown from someone who was of a higher stature. And you have the keys that kind of represent that those people had the keys to every door and they could do whatever they wanted. So overall, this whole process was really, really fun. I had a great time doing it, and I look forward to doing it again. Thank you very much.